Hi, I'm Tiffany Hayes of Needle in a Haystack, and I have this fun winter project to share with you. I have this quilt behind me that I designed, and it is called Mod Winterland. I'm going to share with you how to make the tree blocks in this quilt as well as the star blocks. We're going to do a little stitch and flip technique, as well as I'm going to show you how to use my 60-degree triangle tool. So let's get started. So to get this project started, the first thing we want to do is make the tree blocks. And to do those, we are going to cut from a 2 1/4 inch strip the pieces we need to assemble the trees. I'm going to show you how to cut using my 60-degree triangle tool, and I'm going to place it on this strip that I did cut at 2 1/4 inches. Now I'm going to use any other straight of edge tool to make my first cut. And that way I don't have to pick up my fabric and rotate it around. I'm just ready to start cutting pieces. And this is the 60-degree triangle tool. We set it right here on this strip, and the first cut is at the edge of the tool. The second cut, we will pick the tool up and rotate it, and there is a line 2, and we're going to put that right where we just cut and do the second cut. Again, we're going to rotate the tool around to line number 3 and make a cut. And one more time, because there is a line number 4, and we're going to make a cut here as well. Now, that leaves us with some scrap from the beginning and end of the strip. I will set that aside. The next thing we want to do is trim off our triangles. And I have had a triangle removed from one piece of the tool so that we can do that. And it doesn't really matter how you do it, whether you rotate the tool around or rotate your fabric around. We just want to get these little triangles trimmed off of each of these pieces. So I've gone ahead and done that ahead of time. So let me show you what that looks like. What that leaves us are these pieces for our triangles to assemble our trees. And I've done it in 2 different green sets. And so here are the pieces we need. And we're going to assemble trees that look opposite of each other. So we're going to take a piece from the solid green, and then a piece from the checkered, again the solid, and one more for the checkered. And then we're going to assemble a second block the same way. And you're going to make 11 of each of these blocks. But right now, we are just going to show one of each colorway. So this is how this works. Because we've trimmed these triangles off of here, we can now flip these pieces over and they will nestle just perfectly. We don't have to worry about those pieces being trimmed off here. And we will go and sew a 1/4 inch seam right along this edge. And when we do that, we will go from point to point, and these will flip open, and we will continue up the triangles. Magically, I have that assembled as well. So let's bring over the triangles. Here is one of them. Now, I know this might happen to you occasionally. I had this fabric placed so that the salvage was on the underneath of my fold, and so I have a little bit of salvage showing here. I think I'm going to be okay when I put my pieces on, but even if I wasn't, here's a trick that you could do. If you get a permanent pen that is close to the same color as your fabric, and you have a little white corner showing right here, you could color that in and you could sneak your way out of a problem. So let's show you how to put the triangle pieces that we need next to this tree now that we've assembled a 60-degree triangle. I have cut 2 rectangles, and these are 7 1/2 inches high. They were from a 7 1/2 inch strip, and they are 5 1/8 inch wide. And now I am going to take a 60-degree triangle tool. This one is from Creative Grids. It needs to be a minimum of 7 1/2 inches wide, tall, and this one is 8 1/2, so we're good to go. So I'm going to set this tool, this triangle ruler, so that the 7 1/2 inch line is along the bottom, and the divot on the top that's been cut away, the flat edge, is right at the top of my triangle, and there is a dotted line to the left of center, 1/4 inch left of center of the triangle. And then I'm going to give a slice on this side, and I'm going to come back and trim away this itty bitty triangle up here at the top. And that's going to be important later, and I'll show you why. Then all I have to do is rotate this triangle tool, this triangle ruler around, and get rid of the triangle, the itty bitty one, on this piece. Now when I open these up, because they were wrong sides together, I will have mirror images, which is what I need. I need mirror images to put around this tree. I will have 2 sets from those 2 rectangles. Now I'm going to show you why that little tiny triangle was so important. When I flip this piece over and I set it on the tree triangle, that little divot should line up right along the bottom edge here, as well as this cut seam here. And when we do our 1/4 inch, we will start, and we should come in right at the top. I'm going to go ahead and sew that for you. All right, I got a little wonky here, but you'll see what it does. When I press this, and let's just give it a quick press. So the second triangle that we would put on would now line up again at the bottom where we trimmed away that itty bitty triangle, and it will come out perfectly here at the top where we have a little bit of triangle showing through from the previous triangle. And we would go ahead and give that a stitch again and press it open. But I've done that already. I think I did that. Maybe I didn't. Okay, let's just go ahead and sew that. I did a better job that time. When we press this one open, now we have our triangle, and it is set, we have our tree triangle and it's set within these other 2 triangles. But this is not a square at this point. We need to add our tree trunk to the bottom. To do that, I did some strip piecing, and I sewed long strips of the 2 background pieces with the black here, and this one we trimmed down at 1.5 inches. It will be 8.5 inches wide, and when we sew it to the bottom of our tree, we then have a tree with the trunk, and it is now 8.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And that's the size we need for the trees. And like I said, we will be making 11 of them that have the solid at the bottom and 11 of them that have the checkerboard at the bottom. So that's how we make our tree units. We also need some stars. And to do the stars, we are going to do the flip and stitch and flip technique. We have some rectangles here, and we have squares. And this is how we are going to make the flying geese that go around our stars. So I'm going to draw a diagonal line on the back of this red checkerboard piece. I'm using a friction pen. This pen will erase with heat, but you can use any other washable type pencil or pen. Just depends on what color you need to be able to see what you're drawing on the back here. So I'm going to place the square on the rectangle, and I want the point, I want the center of my flying geese up here at this point. Actually, I could move it either way, but later I'm going to have to rotate it. So for me, I like to place it this way, and I'm going to sew directly on this line. Now the next step is just to cut a 1/4 inch beyond the line we just sewed on. So I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch beyond. So that was the stitch, and here is the flip. We flip this one up and we give it a little press. And now we repeat. So I'm going to draw again on the back of a triangle. From corner to corner. And this is where the placement is a little more precise. We need this diagonal line to cross over the point of the first one we did. So let's take that and give it a little quick sew. So we did our stitch. Let's do a little trim and do a flip. And that's how we get the flying geese unit, which is what we use around the stars here. See how that sits right here? So you're gonna need to make a good number of these because they need to have 4 for each star that we're creating. Our other star has the same stitch and flip technique in the center, but rather than using a rectangle like the first one, we are going to need to stitch and flip around a piece of fabric. This one is the red and white stripe, but we will do the same technique and we will do it 4 times. First time we'll do these 2 corners, we'll draw our lines, stitch and flip, and we'll come back and do the opposite 2 corners. And that will give us this unit we need right here. Now the only other thing that you need to be very careful about on this quilt is trimming along this type of fabric. Now you can just do your cuts, or this is what I did. When the checkers get a little wonky, it makes me crazy. And if that's the case for you, what I suggest you do is take your ruler and cut a 1/4 inch beyond a line that you can find as a good starter point, and trim all the way down the edge of the fabric, and then come back and cut your 2.5 inch strips that you'll use for the sashing pieces, so that your lines come out nice and straight. All right? So the assembly of this quilt is really not that complex after you get all of the blocks made. We have rows of trees, rows of stars, and some sashing. And then we just assemble it. We assemble each row and sew those blocks together and then combine them until we have a complete quilt top. And then you'll have this wonderful Mod Winterland quilt. So I hope you make some quilts, and I'd love to see pictures, so make sure you post pictures as well. Thank you so much.